Okay, we're turning to our top story now. The UN report on Israel's war on Gaza earlier on in the year, concluding that civilians were deliberately targeted. Judge Richard Goldstone said that there was strong evidence of crimes against humanity, both from the Israeli military and some Palestinian factions. And the author of that report, Judge Richard Goldstone, joins us live now from the UN. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us. Israel has dismissed your report as being one-sided. They've completely rejected your findings. What's your response to that?
Well, I'm surprised that Israel has so speedily read a 572-page report and rejected it. This is the first I've been informed of that. Of course, it's disappointing because it's not correct.
You recommend in the report that both sides report to the UN Security Council within 6 months, and if that doesn't happen, that both sides be referred to the International Criminal Court prosecutor. Do you really think that this report would lead to any prosecutions?
Well, I would certainly hope so. You know, the first choice would be domestic investigations and prosecutions that would comply with international standards. It's important that justice should be seen to be happening as close to the places where crimes were committed or alleged crimes were committed as possible. But if that doesn't happen, if Israel or if the Palestinian authorities in Gaza are unable or unwilling to do that, then the only way to get accountability would be through the International Criminal Court. And I would hope that in that unfortunate situation, that will happen.
Can Israel actually be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court, though? Because it didn't sign onto the statute recognizing the court when it was set up in 2002.
No, it could if it's referred by the Security Council under Article 13 of the Rome Statute. It was exactly the same with the Sudan over Darfur. Sudan is not a member party of the Rome Treaty, but the Security Council, acting under Chapter 7 of the Charter, which can bind all member states or any member states to comply with the requirements of the International Criminal Court, and that would apply both in Israel and in the occupied Palestinian territory.
You were quoted as saying that from a practical political point of view, I wish I could be optimistic. You were talking there about the investigation into war crimes when it was still being conducted. Tell us about the legal, the political barriers to war crimes trials.
Well, of course, some countries rely on their sovereignty to object to the jurisdiction of an international court. That's, I suppose, from a political point of view, hardly surprising. But in the last decade, particularly, the international community has been moving more and more towards requiring accountability, and if sovereign states fail in their international obligations to investigate allegations against themselves, then it becomes the obligation of the international community to have accountability before the International Criminal Court.
And the international community does have a responsibility to protect civilians. Members of the UN Security Council are party to the Geneva Conventions. Did they fail in their duty by not passing a UN resolution earlier on?
Well, certainly. You know, I don't want to get involved in. I'm not a politician. I'm a lawyer, and I really don't want to comment on the situation in Iran. It's not part of our mandate, and I'd rather stick to that.
You highlight in your report an attack on a mosque in Gaza City. Tell us a little bit more about this incident and what it demonstrates about Israeli conduct in this war.
Well, the incident I referred to was took place during the evening service in a large, new 3-year-old mosque in the middle of Gaza City. It was crowded with some hundreds of worshippers who were gathered for what is a combined morning and afternoon service that takes place during times of war. And an Israeli mortar shell was fired at the mosque, and in fact went through the main door of the mosque, killing 15 people and seriously injuring many more. This was the incident, and our mission could find absolutely no military advantage or military justification in what appeared to us very clearly to be an attack against innocent civilians.
And your report actually accuses both sides of wrongdoing. Tell us a little bit about Palestinian rocket fire during the course of this war and how it might compare with Israeli action.
Well, I don't think one can compare them, but the report does refer to the fact that the firing of rockets and mortars into southern Israel. Firstly, it must be borne in mind that these rockets and mortars are pretty unsophisticated weapons and cannot be directed at military targets. They were fired deliberately at civilian areas, at civilian cities and towns in southern Israel, including Sderot and Ashkelon and others, and caused terror to the population of those towns and cities. It had serious effects on the lives of the people, on children in particular, who were terrorized, and it affected the livelihood of many people. Some people left the area for that reason, and we found that that deliberate attack on civilians in southern Israel constituted a war crime. And
but you would describe it as disproportionate use of force on Israel's side?
Well, you know, again, the question of proportion doesn't relate to comparing what Israel did on the one side and what the armed military groups did on the other. Proportionality relates solely to the means taken by the military to achieve military objectives. If they attack civilians without military justification, that is disproportionate.
Judge Richard Goldstone, thanks very much.